9:08, Big 550 KTRS. We got an hour to go. Boy, this week has flown by. And then we're off on Monday, and then we're back with a full slate on Tuesday. So we'll bring you all what's going on over the weekend on Tuesday. Scott Sherman here joining us as my co-host.
Hello.
Or I don't know what we call you this hour. It's sort of morphed into something. Much rather stare at Kelly Jackson for an hour than you, but
me too.
Yeah. So Carney is walking around the hallowed halls of the Big 550 KTRS.
First of all, he looks great.
Don't say that.
He does.
He has lost a little bit of weight.
He looks good.
Yeah. But it's still Carney.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's nice that his pants are wrinkled and his shirt's wrinkled and it's a funny look he's got. So, but here's the deal. Here's the deal, Saint. So he's walking around the hallowed halls of the Big 550 KTRS. And he's here to do an interview. He's taping an interview for his show. Is he doing his show tonight, or are you doing the show tonight?
He's back.
He's back, okay. So he's talking to me about something, and he's wearing his glasses. He's wearing his peepers, his cheaters, because he has the notes for the interview. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I got to go do this interview. And he's holding these notes. And so he looks down at his notes to read his notes as he's talking to me. So he looks back up at me, and he has the glasses are on. The glasses are sort of at the end of the nose.
He's got
right.
Carl Levin.
Right. So I looked at him, and I was like, new glasses? He goes, yeah. He goes, how do you know? I go, you still have the stickers on the lens. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, the stickers. I see what power your cheaters are. And he's like, what are you talking about? So he takes the glasses off, and he's like, oh, yeah. And the entire film is over the entire glass with the black lettering on both eyes. He's like, oh, and he puts them back on again. He's like, oh, I'm not as blind as I thought I was.
No, he's so hungry from this diet that he's hallucinating.
He's not on a diet. He's on a squeeze your stomach diet.
He looks fantastic.
I wouldn't say that. Carney does not look fantastic.
I believe it. He's inspiring me.
He does not look fantastic. But anyway, I mean, I get leaving tags on your shirt when you go out.
Yeah.
But leaving stickers on your glasses, that's another thing. All right. One last final morsel of Rick Perry, and then I'll be able to move on.
Yeah. Post-mortem.
Post-mortem on Rick Perry, because it's finally the final commentary on Rick Perry coming to town is, and I said this at 6:00, is that we all need to do a little exercise, okay, to see how you really feel about Rick Perry. What would happen if I would book, or Andrew Cuomo, the Democratic governor of New York, would buy advertising on every radio station and television station in town saying, you know what? You need to move your business to New York because we're growing and we love New York and you will too. And I'm going to come to town, and the Missouri Chamber of Commerce is going to sponsor me to come to town to talk about how Nixon needs to override the veto, which he's already voted on.
Yeah.
And but meanwhile, while I'm there telling you, I'm going to start stealing more of your businesses, and I'm going to meet with businesses while I'm there trying to take them to move to New York. How would that go over?
Well, first of all, there's a bias against New York, so it wouldn't go over as well. It wouldn't go over well at all.
It wouldn't go over at all.
Yeah.
It wouldn't go. Could you imagine if the Missouri Chamber of Commerce brought in Andrew Cuomo, and while on the air, Andrew Cuomo was asked, are you here to meet with businesses to try and talk them into going to New York? And he said, absolutely. Not only that, but I brought New York businesses with me who are helping me to recruit these other businesses.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And it's not just that, but let's expand out the ridiculousness. Let's say they came from Mexico or India or China or some other third world country, and the Missouri Chamber of Commerce paid their way with some big fat cat
Well, now,
guy.
hold on a second. Well, I don't think the Missouri Chamber paid for him.
Sponsored it.
Endorsed it.
Brought him in and said, bring your Mexican business people with you to talk about how great doing business in Mexico is, or India, or China, or Sri Lanka, or some other third world backwater place with a bunch of people working for $3 a day, to take Missourians and Missouri businesses and outsource them.
Yeah.
This is nothing more than intra-country outsourcing to say we can do it cheaper. Come and let's come away.
Right. No.
Wasn't this the entire premise of why everybody was going crazy about businesses being outsourced?
Well, what about this? What about Ellisville, right? Ellisville doesn't want the Walmart in their area. They don't want to give them special tax breaks to move to Ellisville because they don't want to, right? Isn't this kind of the same thing, right? Neighborhoods stealing businesses from other neighborhoods, and isn't it bad? And so could you imagine the Shrewsbury Chamber of Commerce inviting in the Baldwin Chamber of Commerce to say, hey, companies in Shrewsbury, why don't you move to Baldwin? Right? It wouldn't happen.
Right. At some point, you have to.
But Tim Jones, who again refuses to come on this show, talks about
he'll host a show.
He'll host a show on this,
but
station.
He won't be a guest.
And you know what? You got to hand it. And I'm not blaming Rick Perry. The only really stand-up guy in all of this is actually Rick Perry.
He came on here.
He said, "I'm here to take your businesses.
Yeah.
You guys should be more competitive, make it harder for me to steal businesses. But in the process, while I'm telling you that, I'm going to try and take as much business away from you as possible."
Yeah.
He's the only stand-up guy.
Yeah, no, they should.
Right? So Tim Jones says
it was the governor of Missouri.
It was but I mean, yeah, but he was
Claire McCaskill.
But Tim Jones is saying yesterday was a pro-growth rally. It was a pro-growth rally for Texas.
Yeah, right.
He reiterated what he said here on Channel 5 last night when Channel 5 asked him, "Are you meeting with businesses?" "Yes, I am." "Who are you meeting with?" He's like, I can't. I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah, that's what's funny about Rick Perry is he never can remember what he's supposed to actually be doing. He can't remember the 3 departments he's supposed to get rid of, and he can't name one of the businesses that actually moved from Missouri to Texas.
So the final analysis, and I'm moving on. First of all, it made I couldn't believe what I was watching yesterday when I was watching Channel 5 News, and they showed clips of people shaking his hand. I saw somebody putting up a Time magazine. "Please, could you autograph this Time magazine?" Oh my goodness, you're such a wonderful guy. So the business-friendly community invites the guy who's trying to steal businesses from Missouri into. Talk about the fox running the hen house. I know I'm right on this. I know I'm right because the RCGA hasn't said boo. Mayor Slay hasn't said anything. All of these elected officials refuse to say anything. Nixon has. Claire McCaskill has. Republicans are somehow trying to say, no, it just means that we better pass this tax cut or he'll continue to steal businesses. Well, okay, but so the Missouri Chamber of Commerce, let me get this straight. Today, somebody comes to you and says, "I met with Rick Perry, and he's offering me a pretty good package. Should I stay in Missouri?" What does the Missouri Chamber of Commerce say? Good luck to you. I mean, we cannot compete. So how about this? When elected officials meet with other businesses, do you say, Texas is a better deal, you should go down to Texas? I mean, it's ridiculous. No,
and it's ridiculous on a couple levels. Number one, this is a political problem that the people that have the veto-proof majority have. They can't get their own people in line. It's all about politics.
Well, right. It's not Nixon's fault.
No,
it's the Republicans who are not going to vote for this.
The second thing is, here's one for at least the United States taking back this idea of outsourcing on the cheap. I have a Ford Fusion. It's a great car, primarily made in Mexico. They just announced that they're going to open a plant in the United States, in Detroit. More expensive workers, right? No, more efficient. they can make 30% more fusions because they're so popular. It's not about what's the cheapest. It's about what's the best. And I think people that have Missouri businesses know best how to run their business efficiently.
I want people who represent Missouri to actually defend Missouri.
That's right.
And to stand up for Missouri. Not to invite a guy who's going to come and meet with businesses trying to talk them into moving to Texas while they're here glad-handing and shaking everybody's hand. Why is that so hard? Why is that such a liberal idea? Why is that such a kooky idea that McGraw is some big giant liberal? Because I want the people elected to actually represent the town I live in.
It's not liberal. It's loyal. And look at you, New York transplant guy, standing up for Missouri. How about this? When Rick Perry left, can he do one thing for us? Here's one business person he should take with him. Tim Jones.
Tim Jones isn't a business person. He's the Speaker of the House.
Can he take
He represents all of...
He's got a law firm. Can they just take their law firm down to Texas and we don't have to
That's
deal?
the same guy who praised Lockheed Martin over Boeing.
No, wait. The lobbyist didn't write the bill. Right.
That's what he said. Anyway, all right. So I'm done with Tim. I'm done with Rick Perry.
But it was a great week.
I just want on the record.
Well. I
don't have a problem with Rick Perry.
No,
because Rick Perry is doing what he's supposed to be doing, and that is going to states trying to steal businesses.
Yeah,
that's right. We opened the door and fed him a nice and opened the opportunity for him to talk about how great Texas is.
It's like getting mad at John Mayer when he steals your girlfriend. Don't introduce her to John Mayer. He's going to try to steal you. That's just what he does.
That's a good point. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's
John Mayer.
That's Scott Sherman. When we come back, you're going to break down this NFL lawsuit for me?
I'm going to do my best.
All right, that's Scott Sherman, who filled in for John Carney last night.
I had a great time doing that.
All right.
So thanks to everyone for letting me do that.
All right.
McGraw in the Morning continues on the Big 550 KTRS.
9:25, Scott Sherman here to break down this NFL story. So this broke just after we got off the air yesterday, and that is $747 million.
765, 766, whatever it takes.
$1 million deal covers over 4,000 NFL players who've sued the NFL for health insurance reasons. Also saying that the NFL put us back into the game knowing that we had head injuries. This was a massive, massive lawsuit that they settled out of court.
Yeah. It goes back to a couple of years ago where retired NFL players filed this class action suit claiming, one, the league, which we know from a 2010 Supreme Court case called Silver Needle, is not just one, a bunch of entities, but it's one umbrella group, the National Football League, with member groups. That they sued this league saying that you guys, the NFL, knew or should have known for decades that these low-impact bell-ringing type concussion injuries over time, multiple bell-ringing low-impact concussion injuries, could have serious and permanent neurologic damage to the people, such as ALS, such as dementia, other kinds of head injury traumas, very serious injuries. And the claim was, yeah, it's a dangerous game, but you, the league, promoted those hits. The coaches encouraged us not only to perform those hits, but taught us the techniques to have those hits, and then would send us back in the game. It was sort of a toughness thing. Hey, you got your bell rung, get back in there. But all the while, the medical information, the medical evidence was that these repetitive head injuries were something that could have debilitating permanent defects on the players. Now you've got a bunch of people that are very sick. Many of them have died from ALS, have dementia at an early age. And most folks on the sidelines are like, oh, well, you knew it was a tough sport, but it wasn't about whether or not it was a tough sport. It was about what the NFL knew and what they did about it.
Well, what's interesting is they settled for $765 million.
Yeah.
They didn't go to court. You go to court, you have to do a little research. You got to find out what they knew, when they knew it.
The big word is discovery. The NFL has in its vaults, somewhere in computer files, somewhere in a warehouse, all of the smoking gun documents about what they knew about these and how they covered it up. But because they settled it before the discovery process was complete, it's all going to remain a secret. And oh, by the way, $765 million is a lot of money, except for the fact that the NFL makes $9.2 billion every single year from its television contracts and its merchandising and from ticket sales and all the rest. And when you spread it out over the 20-year period they have to pay, it's almost per club like $10 million, I guess, a year. It's not a lot of money. Guess where it's probably going to come from? Look at your ticket stub or your receipts in the next couple of years, and you may see some sort of surcharge on there for health or safety. They may, in fact, the league, while they're going to fund some of this early on in the next 3 years so people can get some relief, they're probably just going to pass that cost on to you, the people that watch the NFL and enjoy the games. But the issue here is not whether or not the concussion symptoms were related to these multiple head injuries. They were. It's the cover-up of the knowledge they've had since the 1960s and certainly since 1994 when the league infused itself by volunteering to do these studies that were completely biased and completely baseless in science that got us to this point.
All right, listen to this.
Yeah.
Individual payouts would be capped at $5 million for men with Alzheimer's, $4 million for those diagnosed after their deaths with brain concussion called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, $3 million for players with dementia. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, you've got $765 million.
Mm-hmm.
So let's put in $765 million.
Uh-oh, there's math.
Divided by, they're saying the settlement applies to all NFL players and spouses of those who are deceased, a group that could total more than 20,000. So let's divide $765 million by 20,000.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. We're assuming this is less because you still have to pay lawyers' fees and administration fees and all that other stuff, right? So this is simple. $765 million divided by 20,000 people who are eligible for this money. It equals $38,000.
Well, yes. But a lot of the people that have diagnosed brain injury, died from ALS, the people that they've tested their, and the only way to test someone's brain
is after they die.
So
it just seems like $765 million. When you take it at that number, it seems like a lot. But when you divide it by 20,000, that's only $38,000. Would you trade $38,000? So, but you can't walk after the age of 40. I mean, Wayne Krebet is our age. New York Jets wide receiver. His brain is marbles. And he was a wide receiver.
Yeah, and the sad story about the guy from the New Orleans Saints player that...
Right, he's got ALS.
He's got ALS. There's a number of players, Junior Seau, Lyle Alzado. There's all kinds of...
Well, Dave Duerson, remember, shot himself in the chest.
Yeah.
Saying, please donate my brain to science, and killed himself when he shot him in the chest.
We've always known football was a violent sport, but it's the medical information that the people in charge of the sport, the National Football League, kept from the players. The players didn't get all the information, and that's really what the crux of the case was, is that the scientific and medical information was kept from them. They were lied to. They were sold, I guess, a myth. And the myth is that you're warriors, that if you go out there and you're tougher than the other guy and you play hurt and you go out there dinged and dented and all the rest, you'll be a champion and your life will be better. That was a medical lie.
Did you see Frontline a couple weeks ago on PBS? They looked at head trauma in sports and hooked up all these high school kids to this, neurons and science and computers. And they were showing that just simple high school hits in high school football games, short-term memory problems, short-term memory loss, confusion, things like that. We're not even talking NFL hits. We're talking high school hits.
And that was maybe one of the reasons this thing settled so fast. National Football League players, where do they start? They start in Pop Warner. They start in high school. They go into college. College football has even less restrictions on the amount of tackling and padded workouts.
Was it last summer?
Pros.
Was it last summer? JR wrote that article for ESPN. Was it last NFL season? He wrote the article, the cover story of for ESPN the magazine, and it was a story about I I love football. Football is dead. That was the title of the article. And it talked about how these mothers, are going to stop sending their kids to Pee Wee football because you're seeing the results of 20 years of football, which is they have dementia when they're 35 and 40, and they can't walk when they're 40. So it sort of stops. You need football players at Pop Warner because ultimately 1 or 2 or 5 of them, 450 of them are going to end up in the NFL.
Yeah.
So football is in major danger.
Major danger, and there's been a disservice, and a lot of this falls at the feet of the National Football League Players Association Union, which has been as part of the national. It's been the absolute joke, the absolute disgrace of unions in sports. They have done, until recently, until that last CBA, almost nothing for their former players, for the people that really need things, like Conrad Dobler, the former Big Red player.
Right.
Knee replacements. These guys did entertain us, and it was a dangerous sport, but they were lied to and misled all up and down the line about exactly what the far-reaching.
Yeah, I agree with you. It isn't like smoking, where they've had the warnings.
It's more like
you were never told as a football player in high school, hey, you know what? If you get your bell rung, come out of the game. High schools were like, well, you little wuss, get back in the game.
That's right.
Right?
It reminds me of the asbestos cases in a way because, was it dangerous to work in a factory? Did that stuff look like it could have been something that was bad for you? Yeah, but they knew that asbestos would kill your lungs for over 100 years, and they kind of kept it a secret. So it's not what I would consider to be a completely clean case with the NFL because they didn't know what the genesis of the injury was, but it was, in fact, a lie.
That's Scott Sherman. I'm McGraw Millhaven here, Big 550 KTRS, locally owned and operated R&R Sanitation Porta Potties, ladies and gentlemen. This story I saw yesterday in St. Louis Business Journal. Scott Sherman.
Yes, sir.
This minimum wage story is getting a lot of attention.
Yeah.
These fast food workers, they're the new factory workers of the 21st century. There's no question about it. Because fast food, which used to be high school kids earning an extra couple of dollars for their insurance for their new car, maybe buy a new Walkman, now people are living and working and making a living while working on fast food. So much so that the average age for a man, I think, working at a fast food restaurant is like 28, and a woman, I think, is like 30 or 31 or something. Somebody said to me recently, you want to pay somebody who flips burgers $15 an hour? That's ridiculous. And I just turned to them and I said, we pay Albert Pujols $25 million a year to hit a baseball. It's not a question over what it's worth. We don't pay teachers enough, right? We pay baseball players and football players more money than we pay teachers. I don't think anybody wants to go to a system where we pay based on the worthiness to society, right? That doesn't make any sense. The capitalist society says you get what you can get. It is what it is. And sometimes teachers, don't get paid their worth to society, but that's just kind of the way the system is.
Kind of the market.
Right. So to say, I can't believe we're going to pay, somebody wants to pay these people $15 an hour to flip burgers, well, you get what you get. And that's just sort of the way it is.
Now, people, they're going to think, they're going to say, lawyer, some kind of caricature. I might surprise people on my view on this. Yes, there is a First Amendment right to try and organize unions, and it shouldn't be violated. So if these people can get themselves together and actually get unionized, okay, great for them.
Right.
But as far as their complaint goes, I don't like it because most of the fast food jobs, most of these big restaurants, these are franchises that are owned by small business people that buy into it, and they have to run their business. So they have a certain amount of overhead, and this is what it costs to run their business so that they can serve a product at a cost that the people that buy it can afford. Mm-hmm. We like the dollar menu. It works at McDonald's because it's $1. If it was a $7 menu, you may as well go to a place It's a great burger place, which we probably should be going to anyway, because they're just trying to make their food costs and their labor costs make enough money to make a living. So while I do agree that the workforce is getting older, and as jobs, especially in manufacturing, are getting shrunk, that people are being forced into these sort of, burger flipping jobs, you could become a chef or a restaurateur somewhere else.
100 years ago, when they were making cars,
yes,
and they said, well, wait a minute, you got to put this widget, this nut on this screw. How much should I pay you for that? That's not a whole skill. You shouldn't. Henry Ford comes along and says, we're going to double your salary for the day or for the week, whatever it was. He doubled the salary so that widget is whatever the standard rate is, we're going to double that.
Yeah, because
and the argument was, wait a minute, why would you do that? Well, it turned out that it was actually a pretty shrewd move on his part, criticized by lots of business people. But he created a whole new middle class because of that.
He did, and it was a much better job than being a sharecropper somewhere and a dirt farmer where you could barely make any ends meet. So there's always a marketplace for things for people to do. But what I like is, instead of, and it almost comes back to the argument we were having or discussion we were having earlier, when you disincentivize people to have jobs in the United States. Now, let me tell you, if they could outsource the burger flipping to, Indonesia, they would. But
they've outsourced the person taking the order on the machine in front of you.
They've done, yes.
Because the guy, when you go through the drive-through and you say, hi, can I help you? That person's sitting in Denver.
Yeah, and your point is a good one. It's not that the burger flipping job is or isn't worth $15 an hour. It's that there aren't enough $15, $20, $30 an hour jobs left for people for the pecking order to be right. If there were manufacturing jobs like with Ford opening up a plant and hiring 1,200 new people with good-paying jobs, that's 1,200 less people, the adults that would be flipping burgers. But it's a very good entry-level job. It's a very bad way to be a single mom or to run a household.
The Cato Institute comes out with a new report this week, and they broke down welfare benefits by state versus minimum wage. And in Missouri, you can collect the equivalent of almost $11 an hour for not working. According to the Cato Institute, in Missouri, $11 in welfare benefits for not working. However, if you work and you get paid a minimum wage, $7.35. Listen to this. Welfare pays more than minimum wage in 33 states. In many cases, significantly more, so says the study. In a dozen states in the District of Columbia, welfare pays more than $15 an hour. Listen to this. In 11 states, welfare pays more than the average pre-tax first-year wage for a teacher.
It's terrible.
In Illinois, welfare pays the equivalent of $6.53 an hour, 44th highest in the country. So in Illinois, welfare pays $6.53 an hour, but in Missouri it pays $11?
Maybe we should be going to Illinois and tell people to come and be on welfare here. We got a better welfare.
Maybe we should start running commercials in Illinois.
Is that what?
Or Illinois should. I don't know. But
there's a fundamental dignity in work, even if you're not making as much as you would sitting around
certainly
on a couch.
Understandable.
But there's a reality to paying the bills. The electric bill comes in. The gas has got to be turned on. You got to pay for rent and things like that. So the reality of living is one thing. The problem is we've fallen in love with the idea, and I guess it's something that happens in big companies, of what's going on with the stock rate, what's going on with the rate of return. We've moved jobs outside of the United States that are needed for people that live here to make a living and then spend their money back in the economy. So I feel very strongly, because I'm a small business person. I've always had family of small business people that own these restaurants, these franchisees and these guys that are trying to make a living by not overpaying for their help.
You cannot sustain a system where not working costs more or pays more than working. So you need to do one of two things: either raise the minimum wage or lower the welfare benefits.
Or
I don't know which one to do. Maybe a little bit of both.
Or punish companies that take jobs and outsource them overseas.
You can't do that.
Why not? Make it more difficult for those companies to outsource their jobs.
Because we are exporting democracy while we're doing this as well.
Great. Everyone's going to be sitting on a couch at $11 an hour.
We're getting ready to bomb Syria, right? Why are we going to bomb Syria? For many reasons, and people are going to laugh at me at this, but one of the reasons why we're bombing Syria is because they don't have a McDonald's.
I was going to say Starbucks.
Right. So no country has ever invaded or bombed another country that's had McDonald's. That's the McDonald's diplomacy. And if you can export your economy and you can export your democracy, Syria wouldn't be so quick to gas their people if they had business people lobbying government saying, "What are you doing? You're ruining my business." So there's a reason why we export jobs, because we're exporting America.
Well, exporting and growing is fine, but outsourcing things and making it more difficult for things that could be done here.
951. That's Scott Sherman. Who's your sponsor?
St. Louis Home Retention Group. They're not outsourcing anything. They're not going to Texas. They're the St. Louis guys, saving your house here so you can afford it here. We all know what happened in the 2000s. The banks all got a great deal. What kind of deal did you get? Well, you got mortgage companies selling your paper to somebody else, and they're trying to foreclose on your house. Yeah, they don't really care about that. But you know who can save you? St. Louis Home Retention Group. Not only have they had 500-plus successful files in just a few years, they have a 90%-plus success rate. That's better than a lot of businesses, especially small businesses. And if you want to stay in Missouri and you want to live in a Missouri house with our lower mortgage tax rates than they have in Texas, the people that can do that for you is St. Louis Home Retention Group. Having trouble sleeping, wondering where the money's going to go? Well, not only can they get you back in line, but they can save you money. They saved a woman who was going to foreclosure $400 per month. What other company gets thank you notes from their customers? St. Louis Home Retention Group does. 636-527-5121, 636-527-5121, or stlouishomeretentiongroup.com.